Today we are putting an original piece of content into the world, a top 5. The top 5 best Hitscan players Overwatch has ever seen. The quality of this list is Michelin star level, similar to McDonald's. Number 5, probably one of the most underrated players of all time, Fitz, who stood alongside Prophet. The grander community and honestly myself have sometimes underrated how good these two were together, but since we're talking about Hitscan today, Fitz is our focus. And he was a person who spent most of his time on Sol Dynasty, joining back in 2019, who didn't get to show Hitscan prowess until the following year in 2020, where this guy fit absolutely perfectly next to Prophet. Whenever he busted out the Hitscan heroes, it was quite shocking to see how good he was. Whenever Fitz played Cassidy, Ashe, or Widow, the guy was keeping toe-to-toe with Lip and DM at the time. Lots of people attribute any wins or success Sol Dynasty had in 2020 on Fitz and Prophet. Aside from that playoffs meta, which was just almost perfect for everyone on that team and one of the reasons they made grand finals, putting Fitz on Widow, Gesture, Roadhog, Marvel Sigma, it was just great for them. Going to 2021, Sol Dynasty was one of those teams where they had a good regular season, made one tournament and got decimated during the stage playoffs. The Gesture feed engine went crazy that year, but the consistency factor of Fitz was just always there. He was always doing his job, kicking ass, and doing what we expected of him. Going into Overwatch 2 in 2022, Fitz was still on Sol Dynasty. After the first stage Sol ever won, Sojourn came into prevalence, and once again, Fitz's performances were just one of the best in that region. I'm not going to say he was Shy or Lip, they were in a tier of their own, but once again for Fitz, his main factor is consistency. Again, you just knew what to expect from him, which is the reason I have him on top 5. He is obviously a good player, he's not the best this world has ever seen, but the fact Fitz has been so consistent over his tenure gives him a lot of value. It's really hard to screw up having him on your team unless you're the 2023 NYXL. They somehow managed to figure out the codex and screw his career over. He had to play a lot of flex support, but honestly it didn't look too bad. I just don't know what was going on with that roster. On Sol Dynasty and the little crumbs Fitz played Hitscan on NYXL, we knew the performances we would get, consistently showing up, putting up numbers worth a damn, and that's a true mark of a fantastic player in my eyes. His peaks may not be the highest in the world, but he never really dipped either, giving a perfect middle ground. Lots of fantastic players have had a rough year in their role. Fitz's cop-out is that his role switched, but that's neither here nor there. When he actually played Hitscan, he never had a bad season individually. He was either really good or just good, and I feel people should appreciate him more, honestly. Number 4 on the top titty is Ons, who I've covered in a previous video before, pluggo. This kid came out of nowhere as the streamer Widowman and had this insurmountable impact not a soul saw coming. It took a little while for Krusty to realize how good Ons was, doing that classic musical chairs with his players, having different people come in to field the exact same hero for whatever reason, but once Krusty finally saw, like, wow, people might actually think Ons is cheating when they see his footage, and stuck him in every time Hitscan was needed, we got to see the mechanical mastermind come from the depths of Ansan Korea. Yes, I know he only played one full season, but unless you actually sat your ass down to witness the glory Ons gave to us, you don't understand what he did for his team on a regular basis. Almost every fight in every match, this guy would get first pick, which at this level of play gives you a massive advantage for winning the team fight, obviously. When you have a player on your team who is doing that match after match, time and time again, well, you aren't going to lose very much. The funniest part is how people were actually scared of him in the server, even refusing the Widow Mirror at times. Ons played with so much confidence, which is something truly needed when playing Widow or Ashe. Obviously, your value comes from killing the opposition, so the more confident in your ability becomes more kills for you. Ons still holds the record for the highest final blows in a series at 90. For someone with no expectations on his breasts, that is insane. Going forward into his career, the impact he was having on 2021 Shock was not really much. Granted, he did get tossed in partway through the season after coming back from Valorant, so I don't really know what to make of that. 2022 on Glads, he did contribute to their midseason victory by playing Widow, and he came in to field the hero on Circuit Royale and a few other matches. maps throughout the regular season, which he still looked good on, but I feel Onz's 2020 performance will always go down in the history books as something that shocked everyone who watched. That single year is enough for me to put him at top 5. He gave us a hitscan peak that will probably never be seen again, and sadly we didn't get to see him play Sojourn much on Glad since he got replaced by Happy, who you could argue was probably better at that point in time. Some people do really downplay how impactful Onz was during 2020, and maybe saying he is a top 5 of all time is a hot one, but with that peak, it's also hard not to say it. Number 3 is Shy. An absolute freakazoid of hitscan play, making his name in 2021 June Joust playing Ashe, putting out unreal performances, immediately showing this kid had a future. It was a true spectacle to see his mechanical prowess against everyone. Sadly, Hangzhou was doing the classic, we don't know what we're doing with our roster, and sometimes took him out in 2021 for whatever reason. It seems when 2022 rolled around, Hangzhou was like, wow, Shy might be the best hitscan in the world, let's put him on the starting roster permanently. And the chaos began. Shy was probably the best Sojourn in 2022. It would either need to be Shy or Merit, but Jiminy fucking Christ, what Shy was doing was not okay. The poor souls that had to go against him on Sojourn would get completely ass blasted. It was to the point where he will just win the game for you if he's not shut down. Which obviously the better teams are going to do that, but that's all anyone really needs to say about Shy. If an actual strategy is just stop that kid from getting value so we can win, is quite alarming to what he is capable of. Hangzhou was alright in 2022, they had some weird moments, losing a bunch of matches they shouldn't lose, and then oh look, Sojourn and Winston are hard meta again during the playoffs, so that means Guxue and Shy are going to have a field day. Shy was the same stone cold killer he showed himself to be previously, getting unreal amounts of value match after match until Hangzhou placed 4th. They came in at bottom seed, and all they needed was Shy and Guxue to be on comfort heroes. Finally, in 2023, we just got more of the same. Shy and Leave together is one of the best DPS lines you could ever ask for. They cover everything. Just put Leave on any hero, and just put Shy on Cassidy, Sojourn, whatever the hell you need, and he will just destroy everyone. Shy has been killing it for the last few years of his career, being one of the best Chinese players literally ever, and one of the best hitscan players on this planet. It really pisses me off that China isn't a part of Champion Series, or at least assuming Team from China would play again. I just want to see that roster once more, but in this case, mainly Shy. It would just be amazing. If someone ever had the capabilities to truly surpass Lip in skill, or even match him, Shy would be that person for sure. Our next spot is for one of the most famous players Overwatch has ever seen, Carpe, being the Philly Fusion milkman, the franchise player if you will, and the only team he ever played for until retiring in 2023. Throughout Overwatch League history, Carpe has always been one of the best hitscan players. Him and other players like Birdring, which is one of my favorite personal players, did the Overwatch thing since the very beginning. In 2018, Carpe made a name for himself immediately, being an unbelievable Widow player. His Cassidy was astounding to watch and always one of the best. The amount of highlight clips he had during that year was just insane, even making a grand finals appearance against London Spitfire, where sadly Philly did get full road, but making it there is an accomplishment. There is a similar sentiment with the years going forward for Carpe. Well, aside from 2019 because Hitscan wasn't really able to be played since GOATS was a thing, but with 2020, Carpe came back strong as ever, having a front-running MVP candidacy argument, mainly playing Cassidy. That first half of 2020, Philly Fusion's season was just insane. Carpe was winning fights on his own half the time, getting the most crucial kills constantly, never missing like ever. We had a similar story on Ashe. Carpe was exceptional whenever she needed to be played as well. That Philly roster was #1 seed in North America at the end of the regular season. Most people thought it was finally Carpe's time to win something, but no, it wasn't. Going into 2021, that was the beginning of Carpe's 4th year in the league, competing in APAC for the first time. Philly was good overall, and once again, I'd say Alarm and Carpe were the best players on that team. He had some wild clips on Widow in 2021. Did Carpe win anything though? No. In 2022, he barely played, and MN3 took over the Hitscan spot. at least after the first stage, where Philly got their final second place in 2022 kickoff clash. I just think Carpe was kind of defeated at that point, which is the elephant in the room. Carpe has gotten second place 7 times throughout his career. His Liquipedia is enough to make the happiest deluded person in the world depressed. 7 times he got second place. And I didn't even realize when making this list, I put him at second. That actually wasn't even planned. This poor bastard, dude. If anyone deserved to win anything, it was Carpe. He's always been one of the best Hitscan players, even when he's being overshadowed by Shy, Lip, or whoever else. He was never a slouch and has been doing it for so damn long, which is why I put him at number 2. He never really missed a beat from season to season, and being one of the best players on your team while playing Hitscan for that long means something for top 5 Hitscans of all time, right? When you are consistently one of the better Hitscans at the top level for that many years, respect does deserve to be put on your name at the very least. I wanted to do an honorable mention segment because there's some people I couldn't fit in here, only having 5 slots, so it's quite tough. I already mentioned Birdring a little bit. It was great seeing him come back in 2023 where the guy actually still had it in him to be one of the best. He was initially going to be the number 5 spot, but I decided to put Fitz instead just because of his overall consistency. When it comes to Birdring, he did have quite a few hot and cold moments on Gladiators. He wasn't always the best on his team, and he had much lower lows than Fitz ever did, in my opinion. There were just moments he wasn't having a good time. DM throughout 2019 and 2020 was actually really good. Then Shanghai found out he wasn't the best Hitscan on their team. You have others like Kai from his 2020 and 2021 performances. Happy when he joined Tier 1 on Guangzhou, he was a very impactful player. Even going forward, he was one of the best. That kid is unreal even today. Merritt, when he was on the Houston Outlaws and Florida Mayhem, was an absolute monster of a player, one of the best Sojourns in the world in 2022. But in reality, it doesn't really matter because I kind of backed myself into a corner making a top 5, and I'll get yelled at regardless of who was on the list or since I didn't mention a certain person. So please educate me on who I didn't mention that deserves a top 5 spot. Number 1 is quite obvious. This list should honestly just be a top 4 because no one else can be number 1 aside from Lip. The most decorated player Overwatch League ever saw, the only person to win Rollstar every year he competed, Finals MVP, a champion, top 2 MVP candidate twice in 2021 and 2023, which is another thing no one else ever did. This is the person I was referring to when I said Shanghai found out DM wasn't their best Hitscan player. It's because they remembered Lip was on the team after a while. When he actually started getting playtime in 2020, people thought like, what on earth am I watching? Whenever he played Widow or Ashe, you were in for a real snack. Stemming to Cassidy and obviously Sombra since he is the best Overwatch has ever seen at that character, he is one of those players who can take over the entire server on Hitscan at any point, especially when Sojourn released and he became more practiced on it. Summer Showdown of 2022 is where Lip truly made his break on Sojourn being one of the best in the world. A perfect example of Lip dumpstering his opposition and taking a match over, but his team just couldn't win. The lower bracket playoffs of 2022, Lip versus Shock, also known as Shanghai Dragons versus Shock. How Shanghai could not win this series is beyond me. Lip was just killing everyone on every map on repeat, but Shanghai only took 1. What even was this performance, guys? Like, seriously. Sometimes Lip just has those moments. He did it recently during the Champion Series Korea Finals on Suravasa. It was just a Lip refused to lose that map, so they didn't lose. He has consistently been one of the best players in the world for each year he's competed, and arguably been the best player on his team every year he competed. What a player! What a star, as Benjamin Hook would say. There's no arguing Lip being at any other spot, unless PGE somehow builds a case for himself in the future, but even if he tried, I'm sure Lip would just come in and suplex him into a bed of nails to retain his number 1 spot anyways. It's just not possible. I don't see how anyone could take this spot up. This is my top 5 Hitscan players Overwatch has ever seen. It's hard to fit everyone I wanted to in the top 5, but please make sure to leave your incorrect list in the comments below. Unless it has Birdring on it, then your list could be considered correct. Thank you so much for watching to the end. Please make sure to like the video and subscribe if you haven't already. And also check out my other video on the polar opposite of good players, that being the worst group of players Overwatch has ever seen.